Hello, good evening and welcome to Biz First Review 360. This week, the third budget of the Unity Government was presented in Parliament. Experts are of the view that Budget 2018 is progressive, with sweeping proposals to liberalise trade, labour, shipping and land that could unlock the island's advantage in terms of its geographical location and proximity to big markets. Budget 2018 also brought some good news for electric vehicle enthusiasts and some bad news for petrol heads. Let's take a look at some of the highlights of Budget 2018.
All vehicles in the country to be powered by non-fossil fuel sources by 2040. All government vehicles will be converted to hybrid or electric vehicles by 2025. Import taxes on an electric car will be reduced by at least 1 million rupees, while the import tax on the high-end fossil fuel cars will be increased by almost 2.5 million rupees. A special tax will be imposed on super luxury vehicles with an engine capacity exceeding 2,500 cc. Import taxes on a diesel three-wheeler will be increased by around 50,000 rupees. A carbon tax for motor vehicles has been proposed as follows: 17 cents a day for motorcycles, 1 rupee and 78 cents a day for cars, 2 rupees and 74 cents a day for passenger buses. Incentives are to be provided to encourage the use of off-grid solar power in establishing electric car charging stations.
I heard that a group of members in the opposition have already embraced the green economy. We are glad. But the only problem is that the bicycles that they rode are now being ridden by the security guards. The vehicles are all here. All government vehicles will be converted to hybrid or electric vehicles by 2025. The taxes on the importation of electric vehicles, including electric three-wheelers, cars and buses, will be reduced, while rationalizing the import taxes on vehicles powered by fossil fuel.
To discourage the use of polythene and plastic products, an excise duty of 10 rupees per kilogram for plastic resins will be imposed. Customs duties for all machinery, equipment, raw materials and intermediary goods used in manufacturing of biodegradable packaging material will be removed. Parks comprising jogging tracks and meditation centres will be established in each administrative division. The government will bear 50% of the cost of multi-day trawlers more than 55 feet in length in order to encourage deep-sea fishing.
A weather-indexed insurance scheme has been designed. The insurance cover will be a minimum of Rs 40,000 per acre for 6 crops. This will be a contributory scheme. The government will invest 3,000 million rupees in 2018.
කවන ආකාරයෙන් මේ දායකත්ව රක්ෂණ ක්‍රමය සැකසෙනවා 2018 දී රජය විසින් රුපියල් මිලියන 3,000ක් මේ සඳහා ආයෝජනය කරනවා.
NBT will be exempted on the imports of selected equipment including greenhouse technology that enables advanced technology agriculture practices. The government has allocated 10 billion rupees to facilitate the establishment of a development bank with an EXIM window to enable long-term financing of private sector ventures. The 2018 budget also proposes allocating 500 million rupees to establish an SME guarantee fund to further augment the SME's capacity to borrow. 750 million rupees has been allocated by the budget to introduce 8 credit schemes on low interest rates to support the SMEs and micro-level entrepreneurs. The scheme will be known as the Enterprise Sri Lanka Credit Scheme. The scheme will make available credit facilities with the interest subsidy being at least 10% more for women entrepreneurs, while differently abled entrepreneurs will be eligible to access the scheme with the interest subsidy being at least 15% more relative to others. The government will also support the Colombo University's initiative to venture into new streams such as data science, big data analytics, actuarial studies and business analytics. A VAT refund scheme for foreign passport holders will be implemented at the airports and seaports with effect from the 1st of May 2018. The 2018 budget also proposes the removal of restrictions that limit land ownership rights of listed companies with foreign ownership, together with the restrictions on foreigners' ability to purchase condominiums below the 4th floor. The government also calls for the creation of an employment preparation fund with students receiving a monthly stipend of 3,500 rupees per month. A total of 75 million rupees has been allocated to increase the eligibility criteria of the household income threshold from 300,000 rupees to 500,000 rupees per annum for the Mahapola Scholarship Scheme. The budget also proposes the development of 100 rural playgrounds throughout the country. Para tariffs imposed on the import of sports shoes will be removed with effect from midnight tonight. NBT will be imposed on liquor with effect from the 1st of April 2018, while a tax structure based on a formula linked to the alcohol content and type will also come into effect. The government has also decided to allow Bank of Ceylon and the People's Bank to raise both debt and equity capital. However, the state will not relinquish the controlling ownership. Fees charged for services provided by the government, which have not been revised over the last 3 years, will be increased by 15%. A special levy for debt repayment at the rate of 20 cents per 1,000 rupees on the total transaction made through banks will come into effect from the 1st of April. This levy will only be applicable for 3 years. The government will also issue licenses to import cigarettes and cigars in a bid to crack down on illegal cigarettes. The budget also imposes an excise duty on raw materials used for ethanol production based on the quantity and introduces an excise duty of 15 rupees per litre on non-potable alcohol. Usance LC facilities will not be permitted to be used for the importation of motor vehicles from the 1st of January 2018. The budget also calls for a fee on advertisements done through SMSs at a rate of 25 cents per SMS with effect from the 1st of April 2018.
How will the government implement the proposed carbon tax, the telecommunications tower tax and the tax on condominiums? On our segment Speak Your Mind, we have highlights from the KPMG budget seminar where a Treasury official explained how these taxes will be imposed.
We don't have the capital cost would be very high if we invest on a mechanism to find a mechanism to monitor the emission level. So the tax is imposed based on the age of the vehicle and the fuel type, because that actually give an idea how much these type of vehicles contribute to this carbon emission. So depending on that, and we have to look into the fact that the public transportation, three-wheelers and these motorcycles, and for them to make a lesser amount or a lowest amount as the carbon tax. And the payment, the procedure for the payment would be once this annual license is renewed, at the time of renewing these annual licenses, that has to be made. And these amendments will come into effect with 1st of April next year. So we have enough time to make it available to the public, the procedures and all that. And will be imposed under the Finance Act as an amendment to the Finance Act. And we have to identify the key exemptions which are essential. We have to keep certain things. And we have to identify what could be removed. And one particular area we identified is that removing this VAT on exemption from VAT on sale of condominium units, because there is an input cost and they can claim it against the output tax. And we are facing problems in approving these projects. They are seeking the concession, the registration under 22(7) of Inland Revenue, that is for the VAT registration during the project implementation period kind of things. So these complicated issues could be resolved through that. On the other hand, it would be a revenue measure, and this it will create a level playing field with every other industries, because we have this capital gain tax. Right. If an individual purchases a property and sell it later, he will be liable for the capital gain tax. But the registered persons who are doing these businesses will be liable to pay this. Okay. It's on existing towers, and there are owners of these towers. They are supposed to pay this, and the idea behind is to encourage the sharing of towers rather than having towers by individual service providers. So it will be not only on the new one, the existing ones also liable.
On the issue about waiving tax rates, I think that we have done something to bring some level of stability. For example, if you take the income tax, by bringing a new income tax law, we are creating certainty. If you look at the law and study the law, we have removed discretion. There's no need for people to come and sit outside the finance minister's office anymore. We have moved more to a rule-based system on the income tax law. Since the law was passed, many people have come and made representations, and I have told them, you ask for certainty, you get it. There will be no changes for the coming period. So that will basically stay in place, and I think it has made it simpler, it has made it easier to understand. But as in everything, people could debate why a rate should be X or Y, and there are differences like that. And on the concessional rate in particular, why these 6 industries are not some other industries, that kind of debate is there. But there is certainty. I think that the biggest risk is not to the people. I think the biggest risk is to ourselves, that we can be out of office. Because, as you said, we are not doing the populist things. We are doing the things which we think are in the long-term interest of the country. Now, that is a debate that goes on. And a conventional politician will come and tell you, this is not the way to do it. You know, there's a different way to do it. I think we have heard the conventional story for several decades. And internally, also, we have a debate like we are having one externally. And I can assure you this, that the finance minister and I am agreed that let's do what we think is in the best interest of the country. Let's move in that direction. Let's try to carry people along and take them along in actually doing that. And that does not mean that we are insensitive to the transition factors and the cost of transition. So, for example, on trade, we will have a trade adjustment package on things like trade. On some of the other reforms that we are bringing, don't you think that they were actually overdue?
Minister of Development Strategies and International Trade Malik Samarawickrama told the ENY Post-Budget Breakfast Forum that the joint venture firm set up between the Sri Lanka Ports Authority and China Merchant Ports will take over operations of the Hambantota port from early December.
Negotiations have been finalized, and we expect the joint venture company between China Merchants and SLPA to take over the port on the 8th of December. So with that, they will inject the first tranche, which is about $430 million, and the balance will come 6 months later. They have already, as far as the port is concerned, everything is in place, and we have already received proposals from various investors. We have received a proposal for refinery, which is about a $3 billion investment. We have got a proposal for cement, which is a $125 million investment. And these are now, people are now coming forward with their proposals. And what is good about it is that these are all joint ventures with the local partners as well, not only the Chinese and local partners as well.
Stay tuned to Biz First Review 360. On the other side of this break, we'll be chatting with one of the country's foremost experts in the shipping and logistics sector. Welcome back to Biz First Review 360. This week, the country was struck by severe disruptions to the supply of petrol. We saw long queues outside petrol stations across the country. What happened? We're going to take a shipping and logistics perspective on this issue on the show this week, and we're joined by the CEO of the Shippers Academy Colombo, Mr. Rohan Masakorala. Mr. Masakorala, thank you very much for coming on Biz First Review 360. From your perspective as a consultant to the shipping and logistics industry sector, we heard a lot about shipments being rejected and that causing this supply disruption, about shipments being delayed. From your perspective, when the economy of a country is brought to a standstill because a single shipment is rejected or delayed, what does that tell you?
Well, I'm glad to be here again. Well, it's a serious lesson for this country of what's called in our language the supply chain management. And I see a big hole in the whole management of the supply chain of this country with this incident, because we are an economy that depends on foreign oil. We don't have our own oil, and our industries, to the domestic transportation, to the aviation, being a shipping hub, everything depends on the supply of fuel, and also for that matter electricity generation as well. So I think there is a lesson to be learned. Something has gone very wrong. I hope the authorities will do a thorough investigation and realize that there is a problem in this country. And I personally feel it's good time to liberalize this industry totally, so that consumers get the best service out of many players. That's the lesson that I can see from here.
This is not the first time that something like this has happened in Sri Lanka with the fuel sector. Although it may feel like the first time for many people, it has happened in the past as well, with shipments being rejected because they don't fall between the parameters, the breakdowns at the Sapugaskanda refinery causing shortages of fuel, limitations of fuel supply. This lesson has been taught over and over again, but it seems that no one's listening, no one's learning.
Exactly, so that's where the problem is, because we are dependent on a regulator and a supplier together in a majority stakeholder of close to 80% of supplies of the country being supplied by one party. And we don't have, that's called a free economy in energy, as although we are a free economy, we don't have that much of freedom in terms of managing fuel and other energy services. So we need good players, new international or local partners to come in and service the market and create more competition among the fuel sector, so that they make sure that these low quality things won't come, because when there is competition only these things improve. Otherwise these things as a circle come in a while and people get totally disrupted to their day-to-day work.
The Petroleum Resources Development Minister Arjuna Ranatunga at a media conference on Monday placed the blame on the LIOC, Lanka Indian Oil Corporation. The next day, on Tuesday, LIOC issued a statement and said, we're only responsible for 16% of the supply, and a disruption to that should not cause an island-wide supply disruption of the magnitude that was seen this week. Where does the problem lie from where you're sitting? Is the CPC accountable for this? Is the Minister of Petroleum Resources Development accountable for this? Or is it LIOC?
All three are accountable for this, because end of the day it's a public utility that is very much important, and I think blame game is a short-term thing that they are trying to blame each other, but I don't think anybody has gone into details of what has happened and done a backward reversal understanding of the whole problem. Maybe they know it, but it's too early for me to comment on that. But all three are responsible, and of course the ministry and the minister and the government is responsible for the public, because they cater for, as you said, 84% of the supplies to the country. So they must make sure that they have supply chain, what we call security, supply chain security of stocks, enough buffer stocks, enough number of ships, tracking of these things coming in, pre-arrival inspections. All these things can be done in a modern world. We are living in the 21st century world, and there are enough mechanisms to control the supply chain today. I don't think enough professionalism is going into the supply chain management of petroleum or for many sectors of state-owned enterprises. These concepts of supply chain management and logistics are not in their vocabulary. As a result, people suffer.
How do you see the country overcoming this? How can you make these important policy decisions to liberalize, for example, when there is such animosity behind the opposition to liberalization?
Yes, this has been a political problem since I have known the free market in this country. Liberalization or opening, I can remember the 77 opening of this country had so much of opposition. So if we are to move towards the so-called Vision 2025 announced by this government, by the President and the Prime Minister, if we do not do the reforms, which includes liberalization of key sectors where foreign direct investment and local companies can come into operation and service the sectors that we are talking of, there won't be competition, proper competition under the current model. No competition means no quality. What you said about telecommunication is correct. What it did was competition, opened up various avenues, innovation came into play, and end of the day who benefited? Public of this country benefited. Today we are a well-connected country in terms of telecommunication. So same thing applies for any other service sector that services the public. If there is competition brought in, nobody can monopolize and then act irrationally or act irresponsibly without implementing systems and processes. They will be forced to. Otherwise, they will go out of business with the competition. So public needs to understand this. Opening up liberalization is the secret of success of the Dubai desert as well as the Singapore market, who are two hubs we are trying to beat in few years' time.
An important message there that the public needs to understand, which is we are trying to emulate the hubs of Dubai and Singapore, but it was being open to competition that brought success to the desert of Dubai and to the swamps of Singapore.
Exactly.
On that note, we're going for a short commercial break. We'll be right back. On the other side, we'll be discussing the expectations of the shipping and logistics sector from the budget. Welcome back to the program. We're in conversation with Rohan Masakorala, the CEO of the Shippers Academy in Colombo. Rohan, when we left off, we were talking about the need for there to be competition in Sri Lanka. From the perspective of the shipping and logistics sector, what are your expectations from the budget 2018? What were your expectations from budget 2018 with regard to making the policy direction towards making Sri Lanka a shipping and logistics hub?
Yeah, very clearly, before I even go to the budget, the Vision 2025 again talks about Sri Lanka being the Indian Ocean hub. Now, what a critical factor of that Indian Ocean hub is shipping, logistics, and being a very efficient distribution center. So we as a country don't have ship owners or major logistics companies of the world sitting here in this country. So we must make the conducive environment for these companies to come and invest and bring their headquarters, do their finances from this country, bring in technology and innovation and go into backward integration. We need these multinationals who control the global shipping industry, because shipping is really a global industry. And our laws are archaic in sense of very old. In terms of international shipping conventions, some of the things have not been ratified properly. The customs laws are still not reformed over the last 2 years. We were talking of a Customs Act. Customs is the border of this country with international trade. So we need to bring the Customs Act very fast, what has been proposed as a new Customs Act. So this budget has to bring that into operation. As a policy statement, we expect the finance minister to say that. And also on the shipping sector, the sector has to be opened up further for companies to come and invest here, so that then we build the real scale, global scale here, so that more people come and do business here and use the location, because we all know that we have a fantastic locational advantage which we always talk about. But if the environment, the conducive environment for investors to come and set up here in operations doesn't happen, location is not going to be any use for us if companies are still going to operate out of Singapore and Dubai and maybe Malaysia.
You mentioned the Indian Ocean hub. There are already hubs in the Indian Ocean. There's one to the east in Singapore, there's one to the west in Dubai. These are not just transport and like shipping and logistics hubs, they're also hubs for financial services, they're hubs for investment, correct, for etc., like multiple hubs. The vision of multiple hubs in Sri Lanka as well has been around for some time. It's not only under this government, even the previous government had this concept of 5 hubs. Is there really space in the region now
for us to emerge as a hub? Is it a realistic vision anymore? Are we too late?
There is still space for us to become a hub, because if you look at the global growth and the regional growth, we live around India, next to India, which is growing at 6-7% and forecasted to be the second or third largest economy within the next, by 2050, a population of 1.4 billion passing China. And the intra-Asia trade too is going to improve. That is the forecast by all specialists in the logistics sector. And Sri Lanka is ideally located for this, and it's relatively low cost than Singapore and Dubai. So if we can get the unit cost down and our laws to support trade facilitation, because right now under the international freedom of economics, we are at 112, one behind China. Free movement or economic freedom, we call it economic freedom.
Economic freedom. Yeah.
Then the logistics index, when it was done last, it was 2014, we were somewhere like 89. Doing business is in 90s. Now
doing business is 111.
Okay, 111, whatever. Very high. So these are not good signs to become a hub. So we have to look at seriously when we improve on these scales. We have to, now India jumped 30.
Yeah.
This year, so
doing business
scale. That means something is happening in that country. So India's growth is our opportunity. South Asia's growth is our opportunity. Even Bangladesh is doing very well. So we don't have to actually capture the East Asian market or the Middle Eastern market alone to become a hub. Our location is such we connect both sides. And internationally, shipping companies and everybody recognizes that Sri Lanka is an important location. But
so that opportunity is still there.
Opportunity very much there, and
but the
conditions are not conducive.
But the time window is closing.
Of course, yes. They will not be open forever, because technology also gives new options to other locations to offer various services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rohan Masakorala, CEO of the Shippers Academy Colombo, for coming on the show and for talking to us about the myriad of issues that we've managed to cover. As always, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. Some important questions to ask ourselves, some important questions for you sitting at home to ask yourself. Do you want toffees and chocolates, or do you want the opportunity to live in a prosperous country? That's a wrap of our program tonight. I'll see you again, same time, same place next week. Until then, good night and good luck.